So you're 80's partner? No, you're his wife?
Yeah, I'm his partner, his wife.
And his business partner.
He likes to call me his chief of staff.
Best friend, close confidant, and chief of staff.
Yeah.
Chief of staff or
Yeah.
chief of staff?
Chief of staff.
Staff. I think staff would.
That's it.
I think staff would amalgamate all the stuff that you need to
That's
do.
it. That's it.
So could you please introduce? Okay. So can you please introduce yourself and tell me what drives you?
Sure. Well, my name's Kate Stevens, and as you said, I'm also one of the co-founders of A2K Media. Although I will say that really A2K Media is really 80's baby. And I guess what really drives me, there's lots of things that drive me. One is just general justice. You know, I just like to think that we treat everyone fairly as much as possible, and that includes, you know, elderly, disabled, marginalised groups. The thing I'm really passionate about actually is health. And, you know, and by that I really mean that I want everyone to be treated holistically. And I think that in a healthcare setting that often doesn't happen. And as far as, you know, brain injury and stroke with 80, you know, everyone was talking about physical rehabilitation. And, you know, I really feel the whole thing needs to be looked at more holistically.
Of course.
You know, not just as far as, you know, using alternative therapies, but also looking at like financial rehabilitation. In our circumstances, all of a sudden, you know, we both couldn't work. I was in a hospital every day with 80. And, you know, the focus is always on, you know, let's get that arm moving again, you know, but it's, I just feel like the whole profession needs to be more holistic.
Yeah, they need to look at us as whole people. I was speaking with Poppy from Brain Injury Matters, and she was talking about how her position as a mother doesn't stop once she has a stroke. So yeah, and we were speaking about the fact that these facets of being human are not even acknowledged, let alone focused on. And it's so important to be able to live life after a brain injury is more than just moving your arm. It's getting by in society.
Yeah. And I also, I mean, another thing that drives me as well is, of course, you know, disability justice as well. You know, I look at things like hotel rooms. They seem to forget that disabled people have families, that disabled people have partners. So, you know, it's often the disabled room is the one in the corner that's really noisy and really, you know, it's interesting. I'm also passionate about elderly people being respected and treated with dignity. I remember watching a show on 60 Minutes and, you know, some of the things I saw was just awful. And in a way, I feel like aged care and disability care in some ways is quite similar because, you know, a lot of elderly people are actually just disabled. And so I just feel that, you know, if older people were treated with more respect, then younger people wouldn't be fearing getting old.
Yes.
When you look at a lot of the blue zone countries, for example, where people live the longest in the world, they really respect their elders. People don't fear getting old. So I just, yeah, they're the things that I'm passionate about, which I suppose is all around justice.
Yeah. And A2K can feed into this, which would be fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
So 80 succumbed to the workings of his brain in 2011. How long had you been together when this happened?
Okay, so this is where, for some reason,
Your memory.
2006 was right. That's when we met. We did our Islamic wedding in 2008, but we weren't legally married until after 80's major stroke in 2011. We were actually married on 80's birthday, the first day that he left hospital.
Wow.
And,
There's a celebration.
and that was an interesting thing too, if you're talking about respect and dignity. And we ordered a wheelchair taxi and we had to wait 45 minutes. On the way home, we ordered a wheelchair taxi and we had to wait 4 hours. And I found out then, that's when I found out, and that's why I keep asking about the wheelchair taxis, is because it's not easy to get them. And the way they operate is you can't really book them unless you know a taxi driver. It's just when one's in the area. And that's why you often see those stories sometimes on the news where disabled people are just sitting on the edge of the road, you know, for hours. That's another thing that needs to change.
It must have taken you some time to get accustomed to the way that Adi was living his life. What did you do?
Look, I feel that I didn't really think about it because I was really running on adrenaline. You know, my whole focus during the time when Adi went into hospital for the 7 months, initially it wasn't really about disability. It was originally it was about survival. You know, so I was you know, quite traumatised. I lost a lot of weight, which was one positive out of it. You know, I felt like I couldn't eat, which is really interesting because now I have a better understanding of trauma because I always feel when I'm stressed I eat, but then I realised during that time I was actually deeply traumatised because I didn't want to eat and I lost a lot of weight. I was there with Adi pretty much 24/7. Actually, when he was at the Alfred, I joined their gym, not so that I could go to the gym, it was so that I could have a shower because I tried to stay in there as much as I could because, you know, I was seeing medical mistakes. Sometimes they tried to give him the wrong medication, you know, all kinds of things. Like, and I'm not trying to blame the nurses or doctors because, you know, they're under pressure and mistakes happen. But I felt like I wanted to be there to make sure that he was, you know, going to be okay. And so I guess that was my focus. So I didn't really feel that I had to get accustomed to something. I was just, you know, like this, on high alert all the time. And I guess when we got home, what I noticed then, I wasn't having an issue, you know, with Adi and his impairments. But what I noticed was the attitudes of others. And I noticed the barriers to inclusion. You know, I noticed when we went to a restaurant and we were really excited and, you know, I walked in and I said, "Is there a table?" "Yes." And then they saw Adi with the wheelchair and they said, "Oh, no, you're going to have to move a table. You know, it's too hard," you know. And I noticed when we went to meetings sometimes, you know, I'd ring up and ask if there was wheelchair access, but there was no accessible bathroom. So, you know, all things like that. And, you know, I noticed when we went out, people would talk to me and not to Adi. And, yeah, so it was more about attitudes, barriers to access. That's what I found most difficult.
Did it affect your relationship?
I think it made us stronger.
Wow.
I mean, I guess that's where Adi and I are really lucky, you know, because we really, you know, before Adi's stroke, we have, you know, incredibly close, loving relationship. And after his stroke, you know, I mean, I'm lucky in a way because we spend a lot of time together. But I like spending time together with Adi. I think it would be really difficult for somebody, you know, maybe who, you know, didn't spend a lot of time with their partner. They loved them, but they didn't want to spend, you know, a lot of time with them. That could be really difficult. But in our situation, I didn't find that difficult. And also I'm kind of a natural, I think, nurturer. You know, I've always gone more to the professions which tend to be more about serving, you know, cooking, serving, you know, that wasn't difficult for me. What was difficult for me was seeing some of the things Adi had to go through, I think.
So,
and it was exhausting sometimes.
I can.
You know, when do you advocate and write a letter to the council, and when do you go, "Oh, just can't do it today"?
How do you see the change that is possible through the screen industry through what you're doing with A2K? Really,
A2K Media, you know, it's always sort of been Adi's vision, and I've really been there to support him. And originally it was about, you know, cultural connections between, you know, Asia and Australia.
Bloody Asians.
You know, my best friend was from Malaysia at school too. So, you know, I already had a lot of interest, and I studied Indonesian at school. And then, of course, when Adi had his stroke, the whole idea of inclusion, we realised that it all became a lot more personal to us, and we really realised the barriers to inclusion. And I guess for Adi, he had an idea that he wanted to create some kind of course for the screen industry to help them to be more inclusive, you know, talking about, you know, access riders and just making sure that people felt included, and he felt that he could make a difference. And so I really just backed him on that.
Great.
So, and I guess, you know, going forward, the Disability Justice Lens project that Eva is actually a bit of a star in too, a bit of an actor here, because we had sketch comedy. So Adi really wanted to include humour in the learning. So it's basically 7 modules of about 10 minutes each. And included in each module is, you know, an e-learning syllabus, but also there's sketch comedy in there. There's also interviews to camera to give it that human element. And that, as Adi was saying, is going to be launched in a few weeks' time.
Excellent.
So, yeah, we're really, really excited about that, and we really believe that this will be a game changer for the Australian screen industry.
Wonderful.
And we're really grateful that we've had backing from, you know, most of the screen agencies in Australia.
One more question. For other people who have partners who have brain trauma in some way, maybe they have a brain injury or they have a stroke like Adi did, do you have any advice or suggestions to give?
Well, it's funny you say that, because Adi actually wrote a book. Well, when I say he wrote a book, one day he just sort of started saying, these are all the things that helped me get through this really tough time, especially at the beginning when he was in hospital. And then when Adi sent it out for feedback, everyone said, we want to hear the carer perspective as well. So we ended up writing the book together. There's sections that Adi has, and then there's little sections, my comments from a carer point of view.
And please, Eva, I wrote it on my phone. All while living with a case of PFS, or pudgy finger syndrome.
Pudgy finger syndrome?
Yes.
It's a hard one, isn't it?
It is that one, yeah.
And so that book for us, and we're about to do a second edition, that book for us was actually everything that we wish we had known. So I suppose in brief though, I guess one of the things that I would recommend is, you know, if you can find a really good holistic doctor, I think that's really, you know, important. For instance, Adi and I went off to India for a month to an Ayurvedic hospital, and that was amazing because it was like a hospital, but a mixture between a hospital and a health resort. But the thing I thought was really brilliant, that I wish it was sort of brought more into Western culture, is that the family were treated really well.
Yes.
So it was actually, you know, fine. I'd stay there with Adi and I showered him and everything. Whereas in the Western hospitals, they did not like me staying overnight at all.
Yeah.
So
It's like, this is our environment, your environment is a home.
yeah, exactly. And so
Very
I
welcome. Felt very welcome.
and the food was amazing. It was all this beautiful, healthy, amazing food that you can really heal from.
Of course, well, they've got Ayurveda as their basis,
Yeah, so
which
that
is
was-
all about food.
I think it'd be awesome if someone went all around the world and looked at all the different systems and brought it all back and started something.
All right, let's get onto it.
But I guess, yeah, and the other thing is, the thing that's really helped us, that I really learnt from Adi, because when he was lying in his hospital bed with rails on both sides, not being able to move, you know, not being able to communicate, he started thinking every morning and every night. He bookended his day with 5 things that he could be grateful for. And I feel for me,
Gratitudes.
I really took that on because it's so easy to, you know, get down and out and go, oh, we can't stay up late anymore and go dancing. We used to love dancing. We can't go down onto the beach, or, you know, we can't get up these stairs or whatever. You can get very down and out. So I just like to think about everything. You can always find things that you're grateful for, and I just think that taking that on board when you're going through a really tough time digging deep and finding those things is really powerful.
Okay.
It helps you get through.
Excellent.
Tommy.
That sounds like a fantastic way to finish this talk. Thank you so much, Kate, and thank you so much, Adi, and thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your wisdom. It's been a really, really, really fruitful conversation.
Oh, thank you so
Well,
much.
I was trying to confuse you because I was taught that in life, if you can't blind them with brilliance, then baffle them with bullshit.
Thank you for joining us on this show. Please feel free to contact us anytime. We'll see you next week.